Inside of this video, we're going to be talking about why it is so important to sell cash physical therapy packages to your patients. And no, this isn't just about lining your pockets with patients' money and getting more cash flow into the business. Those are absolutely symptoms of selling cash packages. But as you'll see in this video, we've also discovered that you get much more buy-in from your patients, which results in better outcomes and more referrals for your practice. So if you guys get value out of this video, make sure to smash that like button. If you want to see future videos on how you can grow your cash physical therapy practice, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Enjoy the training. Sell paid in full cash packages for physical therapy practice. And basically, this is the last stage in a series of 3 trainings that Ben and I have done, where stage 1 covers the psychology of emotional communication and really just walks people through our entire practice sales script that Ben has used to scale his practice to over $1 million a year. And that I use in our brand new practice down in Scottsdale that we opened up in October to already grow it to a 5-figure consistently 5-figure practice in just 4 months of being open, using that sales framework and getting people with great insurance to convert into cash patients. Stage 2 is a really, really important one. We covered like how to create a world-class onboarding experience. And, Ben invented and created this kind of process. And it's so good that he actually has people writing reviews and sending him texts about how much they loved the onboarding experience he had and how impressed they were before they ever got to that evaluation. Now, if you guys were able to provide that kind of experience before someone even got into the door, what do you think the odds are that they're going to want to buy your follow-up services? What kind of impression does that lead, and what working with you might look like? You guys think you'd want that kind of onboarding process? Because we covered absolutely every single piece of it in great detail in stage 2. So if you guys haven't seen stages 1 or stages 2 yet, comment stage 1 or stage 2 for whichever one you haven't checked out. We'll be sure to get that training to you. But I should actually show you guys. So all of these trainings are available to you already inside of this Facebook group. And so if you go to the inside of the group, there's a section called guides. Now, if you go inside of these guides, you'll be able to see all of our top trainings, and the new sales training is particularly one of them. So let me share my screen with you guys and just show you guys where to find that if you need to. And so I'm on the Facebook group. Underneath guides, you can go, and here is stages 1 and stages 2 of our cash sales mastery training here. You'll also see a lot more training on just our Facebook ads framework and what we're seeing working for practices. A lot of our practice resources that many of you have came in through and found us through ads advertising these resources. Here's where you can find them. Here's a bunch of case studies that we also have of how our systems are working for other people. So just make sure you're leveraging these guides. This is something that we're constantly revamping. We have a lot of new content planned that we know is a game changer for cash practices. And so we're going to be updating these guides. So make sure that you're keeping tabs on that. You're checking those out because this is really where our best stuff is housed. And so we got a lot of stuff that I got to go back and make sure it gets added to this section. But here's where those sales trainings are if you have not gone through those already. Awesome. So don't forget, basically, what we're going to be covering here today breaks down into 5 different categories. Number 1, like why sell packages, and it's definitely not for the reason that you think it is. Everyone seems to think that selling packages is all about just you making more money, and that could not be further from the truth. It has everything to do with your patients and much less to do with about you making more money. That is a side effect of the reasoning of actually selling cash packages to people. Part 2 is the ultimate package structure. Like, what are we using inside of our own practices that are working really well? Ben, you have like a 90% conversion rate or something just absurd like that on packages. What is it these days? Can you hear me, Ben? Uh-oh. Is my mic doing that thing? No? Ben, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I don't know what's going on.
That was super weird. I'm not sure how long I was muted for. Did anyone on Facebook have audio issues for the last couple seconds? If so, did you hear me talk about the ultimate package structure?
Yeah, yep, that's about where it cut out at.
Okay. So I was just saying, like, your conversion rate on a packages is absolutely ridiculous. Like, what is it these days?
Yeah, so we convert over 90%. Colin's our highest, so he converts about 93.5% of PTs or patients that come in for rating evaluation to continue on. And the thing too is not just converting them, but also the average number of visits that they're coming in for as well. They're also an average patient that comes in for an evaluation with Colin is also completing over 12 visits as well. Their plan of care is done before the 12 visits, but they're continuing on and doing continuity as well. So yeah, so overall, it's as collectively as a group, we're at 90% over conversion rate with that, and 9.1 for average visits for plan of care. So
that is epic. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that package structure actually looks like. What kind of, how many visits per package, what kind of discounts. We're going to talk all about that stuff. And then we're going to go over our evaluation checklist. And so Ben also has created this really, really good process during the evaluation to make sure that he's constantly stacking value to make it harder and harder for that person to say no to a package by the time he actually pitches it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, so you're not blindsiding your evals with this crazy high sticker price that they weren't really expecting. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. And then how to actually go into the pitch of the package. A lot of people are really awkward when it gets to the time to actually talk about money. So we're going to go over how to do that effectively and with some tools that we use that makes it just way less awkward to to talk about it, and to how to properly educate the eval or the person that's in that you're working with on why you're selling them a package. Because all too often people are just saying like, hey, pulling out a like a package sheet that has all their pricing on it and be like, hey, which package would you like? And without realizing that you're really kind of showing that person that you're not selling them what they need, you're selling them what you want to sell them by doing that. So we're going to go over like how to effectively pitch this package and sell people what they need, not just what you want them to buy. So there's a certain way to do that. Then we'll finish things off with how to overcome certain objections and things that we're seeing when it comes to, selling to some people that might never have paid cash for healthcare services before. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And so for everyone on here, if you guys are watching this live or catching the replay, my only request again is that we don't charge anything for this, but we do have a fee. Our fee is to let us know when you're here live, when you're catching the replay, when you're getting value out of this training, and just engage with the training, because this is how we get this information in the hands of more people. This is how we make our livelihood. So if you're getting value out of this training, just get some value, comment value, and just let us know. So this video gets pushed out to more people. If we can do that, we'll all be happy, and we'll keep doing these live trainings every single week, dropping the knowledge that most people charge like top dollar for. And so let's dig into this stuff. Thanks for the heads up, Ben. Appreciate that, man. So this is what we'll be covering today. Just make sure you pay the fee, people. Okay, so let's talk about why to sell cash packages, and it's definitely not what most people think. Everyone thinks that it's about making more money, but I think if you listen to some of Ben's origin stories, you might gain a little bit of deeper insight into why it's so important to do this. And he alluded to that a little bit ago about what is the average number of visits that people are actually coming in for. And so Ben, were you selling packages right out of the gate when you first started?
yeah, I was actually. It wasn't. They were different packages, and restructured them. And that's the thing too, is it made a mistake a lot of people do as well, and had like really low package options for the number of visits, and that kind of goes into structuring your packages, make sure that you have that dialed in as well. So did it at the beginning, but they weren't optimized the way that they should be. So.
And so I mean, you are one of the rare few that had the kind of wherewithal to know that you need to start out of the gate with that. But most people, they feel really uncomfortable with doing this. And when they have initially started trying to sell packages, they were met with just like fierce resistance. Now, a big part of that is for sure, like you just aren't maybe that comfortable with sales yet. And maybe you haven't properly pre-framed them. You haven't gone through stages 1 and 2 to make sure that this person is properly pre-framed on buying packages. But more often than not, when you're first starting selling packages, the biggest issue that is causing people to not want to convert into package is you're not attracting the right types of people. And so the number one reason why you want to sell cash packages, especially if you are a primarily cash-based practice, is you need to, by doing so, you're going to start attracting the right types of people that really value their health and really want to invest in their health. Like Ben, when like the way you structure things, like when people aren't and they're kind of resistant to packages, you like instantly know that someone isn't like a good fit. And so how has adjusting your package structure started to impact like the quality of people that you're working with?
Yeah, it just goes up substantially. And that's the thing too, is when you, if your packages are structured too low, and you get more of the commodity market, you get hit with a lot of more people negotiating with you and trying to negotiating your prices, because you're just kind of in the middle of what everybody else is doing as well. So I remember when I first started out, I would have so many people that would try negotiating follow visits and pricing. And we rarely ever get that now. And it's because we're charging a premium price. So you just deal with a lot of less of those headaches, and you don't deal with as many people just price shopping and bargain shopping as well. So you attract the right patients and the ones that are enjoyable to work with and actually see the value in what you're doing as well.
Right. There are so many people out there that are so sick of traditional healthcare, and they're looking for premium services. They did cheap before and they're sick of that. And so you got to make sure that you're price tagging yourself in the ballpark of the people who are looking for next level care. And if that's something that you provide, you would be, I don't want to say foolish, but a lot of people make the mistake of going with the competitive pricing, going with like, well, I saw this practice was charging this, which I thought was really low. Then I saw this practice charging this, but I thought was high. So I just went with right in the middle. And this is a big mistake because there's no competitive advantage to being medium priced. There's no competitive advantage to being in the middle. Okay. There's a huge advantage to being the lowest priced if you have a practice model that can sustain that, and you have the resources to really scale that. If you're like a Athletico or an ATI, they do really well because they're able to kind of underball. They're kind of like fast. I hope I don't insult anyone like that, but it's kind of like the fast food model for physical therapy. And so they have the resources to be able to sustain those kind of prices. Whereas most cash practices, if you're just starting out, you want to be the most expensive. Ben, are you the most expensive in your area?
Yeah, yep. We're most expensive. And from my knowledge in the Bay Area, yeah, and from what I've heard, we're the most expensive. I think there is a PT that's outside of, I think they're about 75 to 100 miles east of us, and they're charging a little bit more. But yeah, in our immediate area, we're the highest.
Right. If you guys want premium patients, you need to have premium prices. If you want patients that buy iPhones, you need to, kind of treat your services like the iPhone physical therapy. You don't want to be an Android or a rhodiola phone. Is that the right? It sounds wrong, but I think it's right. But yeah, Rhodiola. Wait, say it one more time.
Motorola.
I don't know why I can't say that word right now, but just make sure that you're pricing yourself in the realm that's going to attract the types of people that want to buy premium stuff. Okay. The second reason why you really want to get this is patient buy-in. Okay. When clients have invested more, they are so much more bought into what it is that they're doing. Like people who pay $200 for a master or coaching program, they're probably going to just let that training program sit in their inbox and maybe look at it, maybe they'll circle back on it, but it's not a very big priority. But when Ben and I buy a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 coaching program, you better believe that is the only thing that we're thinking about for the next quarter at least. And so there's like a very real intrinsic value when it comes to investing and paying more for things. Okay. People get better outcomes because of it, because they're so much more focused on actually getting the result that they just paid for. They just bought a transformation. They're going to go all in on making sure they get it. And so have you, like, what are the trends that you're seeing with this, Ben, as you've kind of like adjusted your prices and increased them over time? Is there any kind of relationship with like outcomes or how many visits people are coming in for?
Yeah, for sure. So that's the thing too, is we get way better outcomes now. And it also in turn increases referrals because we're getting results for them, but also not just general results. We're getting them long-term results. A lot of people are out of pain usually after 2 or 3 visits. And so a lot of times what typical, like if somebody isn't doing packages, just going on per visit basis, And other clinics, what's going to happen is they're just going to drop off after 2 or 3 visits because they're out of pain. But we know that root issue isn't solved. And so when that pops back up a month or 2 months down the road, you don't know about it because they don't reach out because like, well, that PT didn't work, and then they're going to go elsewhere. And now because they're not coming back in or reactivating, you're also losing out on referrals because they're not going to recommend somebody because they didn't get long-term results. Right. But the thing is, you think that you did such a good job because you got somebody pain-free in 2 or 3 visits, and you don't know on the back end, like what happened when they're outside of your care, that the pain actually just came back and they're actually not happy with the results, but you think you did a great job. But that's the thing that I think people don't realize because it's like out of sight, out of mind. You don't necessarily realize that. And so by patients actually investing in packages, we were able to actually solve the root issue. Patients are much more happy. We're not just getting them back to baseline, but we actually have a chance to really level up their goals and get them to do things that they never thought were possible. And that is much more powerful, and they're going to be referral source for years to come. So that's the power of doing packages instead of people dropping off after 2 or 3 visits when they're out of pain. So
I think that's a really good point, because like a lot of people do feel like they brag about it. It's like, yeah, I mean, they're pretty much better after like 3 or 4 visits. And it's like, are they though? Like that person's really happy and they're satisfied because maybe you're the first person out of like 3 different clinicians that were able to like actually allow them to do the thing they want to do pain free. But did you actually solve like the core problem that the person was having? What's the probability that 6 months from now, the person's going to be right back where they started and have to spend even more money to solve the problem and be in a position where they're even less trusting of the healthcare system because no one seems to be able to actually solve their problem and just putting Band-Aids over it. And so that's another huge piece of like why you got to sell packages. And we're going to talk about that in just a second here. But I thought that was a really good point, Ben. Patient lifetime value. And so you want to kind of talk about this one about the problem that you run into when you're selling visit by visit, and how like selling packages is really skyrocketed the average number of visits that clients are coming to, and kind of talk to that.
Yeah, and that's a big thing about scaling. If you want to scale, you have to be able to capitalize on this. And so, for example, if let's say a clinic averages 3 visits per plan of care, if you can get it to 9 where we're at, that means you have to find a third of the new patients that you normally would have to, right? So for every single new patient that we get, a clinic that averages 3 visits per plan of care has to find 3. That's a lot of turnover. That's you just can't, like, we would be a third of the size. Like it comes down to it, we would be a third of the size for Oakland. We have 3 full-time PTs. If we had that, we would probably be only able to withstand having 1 full-time PT on staff. That is a third of the revenue that you can generate. So this is really low-hanging fruit that you can capitalize on. Everybody's focused on new patients. Why don't you just increase the lifetime value of patients and be able to get them long-term results and improve your practice and be able to scale it in an effective way as well. It's a win-win. So
nice. Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, most people, they don't sell packages because they don't feel comfortable talking about money. And so they go with the easy thing, which is selling on a visit by visit basis, because they think that actually creates less friction, when in reality, you're actually creating way more friction for that person over time, because now every single time they come in, they're balancing like, how do I feel in this moment versus how much does this actually cost, and weighing the scales on that. And now when you do that, and we've looked at the numbers of dozens and dozens of practices, and when they are doing visit by visit, we're seeing that that each and every month, like when they start to, like 1 month, they're not getting as many patients. Like their total visits every month is getting hit really, really hard. There's a huge, very strong relationship between new patients and how many total visits there are, because a lot of their patients are dropping out after 3 to 4 visits. As soon as they feel like, okay, this doesn't really hurt anymore, do I really want to pay for another visit? They're dropping out. That's why selling packages is so important, because not only do you articulate to them, like explain why you're selling this many visits, and explaining to them like, hey, after the 3rd visit, your pain's probably going to be gone, but that's not like, you don't want to stop. Otherwise you're probably going to have to come back to this thing. And that's why we explain that whole process. But by doing that, and instead of doing visit by visit, there's people think that there's a lot more friction there, but it is a bigger initial step. But over time, if they have to rethink and you have to resell them every single time, that actually creates way more sales friction, which is why most people end up dropping out. And so it's much easier on yourself if you kind of just like work up the processes and kind of the conviction and confidence to sell them the package initially. It's just going to be so much easier than you. It's people think that it's harder to sell packages, when in reality it's actually not. That's when you, like Ben, because you're selling packages and they're committed to way more visits. Even if you have a bad month where you only got like 6 new patients, okay. That's totally fine, because you have all the patients that you sold last month still coming in to supplement that. And so you're able to kind of make sure that you're growing every single month, even if you have a poor month, just because you have people sticking on for so much longer. So increase the lifetime value. That's a huge one, because the more someone is spending with your practice, that means the more you can spend to acquire that patient. And the person who can pay the most to acquire leads is going to win every single time inside a business. So that's a really strong one. The next one here, number 4, is better outcomes. So Ben, you kind of already talked this one a little bit, but you kind of want to break that down a little bit about, selling packages, like people are bought in way more and it's resulting in better outcomes, more referrals.
Yep. And that's the thing too, is if they've got, to just elaborate on things a little bit more, is when somebody's paid in full for a package, they're 100% committed. They're going to do their home exercise program. They're all in. They're going to be more consistent. They're not going to be wanting to space out. You're not going to get so many reschedules. You're not going to get as many people like, oh, I want to skip this week, or can we just push it out to next week? People are committed. They want to do this right. They've already paid up front. They want to make sure that they do it right. So it does decrease reschedules and cancellations as well. So, but then just to add on, everything else that we spoke about too, with outcomes and more referrals. So.
I can't tell you how many people that started inside of our masterminds who were like going at it, their cash practice for probably a full year on their own and just working like, 70 hours a week, hustling like crazy to get patients in the door. And they didn't realize like they were working so much harder than they needed to, because they were selling on a visit by visit basis, which prevented them from staying on as long as they should, which means like if they drop out before, just because their pain's gone, they're probably not getting fantastic outcomes, and the issue is going to come back down the road. And so not only are these people not sticking around for more visits, but they're not sending referrals. And it has this giant cascading negative impact on the practice, just because these people aren't getting what they actually need. You might be giving them what they want, which is getting them out of pain, but you're not actually selling them the thing that they need for them to be like, holy crap, like this is so much more than I actually expected it was going to be. I'm in a completely different place. Like now they have all these emotional wins. And that's what people really share when they talk about their friends and families, about their experiences with physical therapy. They don't talk about your techniques. They don't talk about the actual process. They talk about the emotional wins that happen throughout that process. And it's hard to provide those when they're only sticking around for 3 to 4 visits. So the results explode when you start selling packages for sure. And then the last piece, and this is the very last one. Everyone thinks that selling packages is greedy, is that it's about making money. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Okay. And all of these 4 reasons are all very massive, important KPIs to be measuring and having inside of your practice. And by selling packages, it optimizes and grows every single one of these areas. The very last benefit, which is really just a side effect of all of this, is you're getting much faster infusions of cash flow. It's hard to grow and scale the practice when you have to wait for cash collected to come in the door. When someone pays up front, yeah, sure, you're going to end up seeing them for a few visits where you're not getting paid, and that for some people that feels weird. But I would much rather have cash on hand now than than a little bit of cash on hand later. And so this is where you're starting to be able to reinvest that extra cash flow back into the patient experience, buying better equipment, and just really creating a better environment for people. Also being able to reinvest that stuff back into ads. We have an ad system that we know for a fact every single time we pump $10 into it, we get $50 back. And now we have this big influx of cash that we can now turn, 1 patient into 5 patients. And so it's a really, really important thing. You absolutely need to have cash flow. The number of people that we've also worked with that are selling on visit by visit, who are working themselves to the bone, but have no cash in the bank to be able to show how hard they're working is insane. And it's all because people are just selling visit by visit, or maybe some of them are just in network and they're kind of, you're stuck with what you get in that scenario. But if you really want to break free, be able to scale things quickly, you need to have cash on hand. And so you need to start collecting the payment up front when possible. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in just a minute here. Anything to add to that, Ben?
No, I mean, it's just reinvesting. You're able to have like you said, the cash flow to reinvest into different marketing strategies, which in turn generates more revenue and generates more new patients. So it's a win-win. So, and that's the thing too, is I don't have a problem with what we charge in the packages, because at the end of the day, if you're out of business, you can't help anyone. So that's my big belief on things too. So.
Right. There's nothing wrong with being broke, but it's really hard to help a lot of people when you're broke. You got to have cash flow to be able to help the people you want to help, even if money is not your motive. It's just what it is. And so let's talk.
Guys, if you got value out of this training, make sure to smash that like button. And if you want to see future videos on how to scale and grow your cash physical therapy practice, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you guys are going to start selling cash packages or are already doing so, and you're curious how we're going about actually pitching and presenting those packages, be sure to check out this next video that's going to outline our exact process that we use to scale our practice to over $1 million a year and have on average 9.1 visits per patient with our cash package sales framework. Be sure to check it out.